how fast do tendons heal? This is a loaded question. And first of all, I want to say that there is no answer. You'll see a lot of experts be like, oh, it takes 72 hours for the tendons to heal. And it's like, wait, didn't we go down this same path with muscles 15 years ago? Right? 15 years ago, when I was in college, actually, I think we are still learning muscles take 48 to 72 hours to heal. So if you train on Monday, if you train your chest on Monday, you can't go back to train your chest until Thursday. And then you start looking closer at the studies and you're like, oh, well, it's done on untrained athletes who have never worked their chest. So this is a 8 or 12 week study where they've never worked their chest before. And now you went and just obliterated their chest muscles. And yes, now it's going to take 72 hours for them to recover. Or it's in trained athletes, but they use a bodybuilding protocol. So they'll do like 9 sets for the chest. They'll do 3 sets of bench press. They'll do 3 sets of an incline dumbbell press, and then 3 sets of a cable fly. Like, yeah, you just killed your chest muscles. So of course the dose is so high, it's going to take 72 hours before you can train your chest again. And that's what sent everybody down that path of you got to do bodybuilding splits, because we thought that the muscle needed 72 hours. And then some smart researchers started going, wait a minute, maybe that's a ridiculous rule. Maybe you could just train every other day and train full body, which makes it lower dose per muscle group. So now instead of 9 sets for your chest, I could just do 3 sets on Monday. And then I'm not going to break down as much muscle. I'm not going to be as sore. And then I can come back on Wednesday and do another 3 sets. And then I can come back on Friday and do another 3 sets. And what they found was muscle protein synthesis was actually elevated throughout the week even more, because every 48 hours you're giving yourself that stimulus. And so for a lot of people, that actually works way better, is just 3 full body days. I'm not saying for bodybuilders, that's a little bit different, but for the average person, the 3 full body days is going to build stronger, build more muscle. And so then other researchers are like, wait a minute, if you could train 3 days, what if you just trained every day? And instead of 3 sets, you did 1 set, or you did 2 sets. If the volume is low enough, you can train every single day. So the point I'm trying to make is what we found with muscles is it's all dose dependent. So if you give yourself a huge dose, then yes, you might need 72 hours or even longer. And if you give yourself a small dose, like you microdose, you could end up doing it every single day because you're causing much less muscle breakdown. So now we're in 2024 and experts are still saying, well, the tendons heal so slow, it's going to take at least 72 hours. And like, yeah, it could if you do a really hard workout and it's high volume, or you're untrained and you just got into a training program. Yes, it might take 72 hours. It might take even longer. Maybe maybe you did actual damage to a tendon, and it's going to take weeks for it to actually heal. And so it's all dose dependent. However, to say it's 72 hours is false, because if you do less damage to it, it's going to be 48. If you do even less damage to it, it's going to be 24. Like every day, our tendons are breaking down during the day. It's rebuilding at night. It's breaking down during the day. It's rebuilding at night. And so if I don't do a lot of damage to that tendon, I might be good to go again the next day. And let's just think about this logically. Like our ancestors survived for millions of years without having to rest their tendons for 72 hours. Like imagine our ancestors going out on this long, grueling hunt with like extremely long, like miles of walking, sprinting, jumping, climbing trees, throwing spears, dragging back an animal all the way back to their camp. Like extremely grueling day on the body. Imagine if they're like, okay, guys, well, I'm out for the next 72 hours, but yeah, come get me on Thursday, right? Today's Monday. We're well fed. Come get me on Thursday, right? The tribe's not eating again until Thursday. No, like you would need to go back out the next day. We humans would literally not survive. We wouldn't be here right now if tendons actually needed 72 hours to heal, because they would overtrain themselves with that long hunt, and then the next day they wouldn't be able to go hunt again. Humans would not survive if we could only work Mondays and Thursdays. Like if we could only exert ourselves physically Mondays and Thursdays, otherwise our tendons just tear, humans would not be here right now. So, our ancestors knew that without any studies. They knew that, well, hey, I can actually, if I'm well trained and I'm active, right, and I don't go through these long periods of being sedentary, I can go out and be active every day. Now, intense training is a little bit different. We're doing unnatural stuff to our body, like, playing basketball is not a natural thing. Dunking is not a natural thing. Even weightlifting, to a certain extent. Yeah, I mean, a little bit. We are expected to drag animals and to pick up stuff and put heavy things on our shoulders and pick up stones. And so, yeah, like lifting weights is somewhat natural, but doing it to the extent that we do it for performance and for building muscle, like that is not a natural thing. So I'm not saying that you can train hard every day, but once you start to understand that everything is dose dependent, cartilage, tendon, muscle, bone, it will all adapt. And yes, cartilage and tendon is going to be much slower to adapt than muscle, but it is all dose dependent. So once you understand that, you start to realize you have a lot of options. People make it out to be like, oh, a 2-day split or a 3-day split is the only way to do it. Well, you could do a 5-day split. You could do a 6-day split. It's just you have to do much less in each session. That doesn't work very well for me these days because I'm in my mid-30s, so it takes a long time to warm up. So like if I'm doing jumping, instead of jumping every day and just doing a little bit, for me, it takes quite a long ramp up and warm up for me to hit a real 100% jump. And so by the time I'm warmed up and I'm feeling bouncy, I got to stay there and I got to get some reps because I don't have the time every day to go through that long warm up and be like, all right, I'm feeling good. And then just go do like 5 jumps, right? So for me, right now, it would be more of that Monday, Thursday. I'm going to hit a higher dose. While I'm feeling good, I'm going to rep it out. And yes, I'll be sore the next day. And I might even be sore the day after that. But, if this is Monday, by the time Thursday comes around, I'm going to be ready to go do it again. But when I was younger, when I was in my 20s and I played basketball every day, I mean, imagine the amount of damage that the tendons are taking and your body adapts and you learn to do it every day. And NBA players are doing it almost every day. And so it's dose dependent, and it is also dependent on where your body is, what you can actually handle. So for practical advice for you guys, we like to use the rollover method. So all of our programs, let's say you're on are unranked and you're doing the basketball strength code and it's calling for 3 full body days. You train on Monday and then the next day we have you doing some stuff, but it's not really lifting. Maybe you're doing some lower intensity mobility work, some core, maybe some low level endurance. And then Wednesday comes around, you got another full body lift. If you're still sore, like your muscles are still sore, chances are good that your tendons also aren't fully healed because tendons are going to take longer than the muscle. So if muscles are still sore, I think it's a pretty safe assumption to say, hey, my tendons probably aren't ready. My cartilage might not be all the way ready. And so use the rollover method. You take that day, you push it to the next day. So you could do another low intensity day on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, you go back and you do Wednesday's lift, as long as the soreness dissipated, right? And so that goes for really all of our programs. If you're sore on the day that you're supposed to do another intense lower body lift, or even a moderate intensity lower body lift, or jumping or sprinting, move it to the next day. The next day you come in, warm up. Am I still sore? If you're still sore, move it to the next day. Now, you got to go back and adjust because you did too much on Monday. You shouldn't be sore for that long. I want you to be recovered 48 hours after the session. which means that you're not ready for the 3-day a week, or you're not ready for these high volume days. So you'd cut back by like 50%. So cut back 50% on the sets, and then assess yourself. Now you cut back 50%, and then you gradually ramp up that volume until you can handle doing that full day and then still being recovered for Wednesday, and then doing that full day, still being recovered for Friday. So that's always the advice I give for all of our programs is, dip your toe in the water at first, start at a really low volume and then gradually up it. But also, if you do train so hard that you are still sore 48 hours later, skip that day, roll it to the next one, or replace that day with a lower intensity zone 2 cardio, low impact cardio, do some core, do some mobility, go get more shots, like just do low intensity stuff. And then the next day come back and hit your more intense lift. Because people think that pushing through that soreness is good, but there's other things like tendon and like your muscles could get through it probably. But your tendons and your joints, your cartilage, like if your muscles are still sore, those things are probably still trying to heal, and you don't want to go break it down again because now you're just breaking down more and more. And at some point that could become an overuse injury that just lingers. So, you're better off underdoing it a little bit than overdoing it a little bit. And look, that's probably only going to apply to your first couple weeks of a program. At some point, you become really adapted. And there's a point in the vert code elite where we end up going 4 days. We do back-to-backs. So it'll be like a high intensity, but very, very, very low volume strength day. And then the next day you're doing your sprints and you're doing your plyos or you're doing a dunk session. And so, yeah, it's back to back, but we've built up to that point, right? We're not just throwing you in the fire with back-to-back days. And I do think it's important to be able to handle back-to-backs at some point, because when you go play basketball, you're going to have to handle back-to-backs. When you go play on your weekend tournaments, that's the ultimate back-to-back. That's like 4 games on Saturday, 4 games on Sunday. That's the ultimate back-to-back. If our body can't handle that, and our tendons aren't used to bouncing back quickly, then we're just going to, rupture our tendons every weekend. So it is important to eventually be able to handle some intense back-to-backs, but you got to build to that gradually. And then, like I said, it's dose dependent. So we're not doing high volume back-to-backs. Like we're taking your sprint and your plyometric volume down significantly, and then the day before that, your strength day, we're taking that down significantly. So that strength day is not causing any soreness, right? And then you do your plyo day, you still feel fresh. And then you take your Wednesday off, and then we come back and we do our strength on Thursday, and then we do our plyo on Friday, and then we take the weekend off. So this is like, this is the most, that's the highest frequency that I would go. I think that's the highest frequency we go on any of our programs. Now, most of our programs, we do train 6 days a week, but it's like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday where you're doing lower body stuff, and then a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday where you're doing like lower intensity cardio and core and mobility and like stuff that just doesn't interfere with any of the intense stuff.